If everyone is ready, then I will hand over to Toon to begin the presentation.
Sure, thank you very much, Danielle. So welcome everyone to today's session. As Danielle mentioned, my name is Toon van den Berg, and I'm actually the sales representative for the security, risk, and governance solutions within Micro Focus. And by the way, we just rebranded our business unit, and we are calling ourselves now CyberRes, which stands obviously for Cyber Resilience. And when people ask me, like, what are the areas that we typically work in at CyberRes, I always start by saying what we don't do. We actually do not have any network traditional perimeter security solutions in our portfolio. We primarily actually focus around protecting the 3 layers of identities, applications, and data. So I don't want to bore you with the full portfolio, and actually a couple of you in the room already know the portfolio. For those who don't, just a very brief overview of what are those different areas that we have solutions in. 45, I'll probably gonna skip that one already because that's really the purpose of today's conversation, and speakers after me will spend some time on the 45 portfolio, but definitely a very nice one in the CyberRes suite. Another one that I do want to talk about a little bit more is NetIQ, our identity and access management solution suite. Actually, a couple of people in the room who are using the solution today. KU Leuven is actually using it to provide central access to all of the different applications and systems to the students. So every year, at the start of the academic year, it's a little bit of a headache of providing all the access to the 150,000 users of the network, but they have been a very stable and very happy customer for the last 10 years and more. Very broad portfolio, covers the whole of the identity and access management suite. And as I said, very scalable and very stable solution. ArcSight, very different, is in security operations and monitoring. It's more in the SOC and SIEM space. Basically starting by centrally logging all the security logs and events from all the security devices, on which we then add intelligence, so you can really use that information to gather intelligence around your networks, whether you're potentially under attack or might be breached. And then finally, our voltage portfolio, which shortly I usually call our GDPR suite. Typically, it's about protecting data. But before you can protect it, you have to know what you have. So there's a whole discovery aspect in there as well, where you can go and find data in both structured and non-structured repositories. So that's just in literally a couple of minutes what we stand for. Obviously, if you have some questions, don't hesitate to get back to me. But today's session, as I said, is really focused around 45. And I'm really glad that today we're here with our gold partner approach, who we have been working with already for a couple of customers, and our relationship is getting more intense by the day, and which I'm really happy about. So with that, over to David.
Thank you, Toon, for your introduction and kind words. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is David van der Oost. I'm the CEO of Approach, and I'll start by giving you a short introduction about the company. For those who already know us, it will be just a quick update. Don't be afraid. So, as you know, Approach is a company specializing in cybersecurity and secure development. Our mission is all about building the trust you need in the digital space to be successful. So it's clear, it's all about secure application, data protection, cyber resilience, privacy, transparency, and so on. And with respect to the topic of today, which can be summarized as secure SDLC of DevSecOps, whatever, I think we uniquely combine strong cybersecurity expertise with 20 years of experience in software development. And I'm convinced this is a strong differentiator on the market right now, because the security concepts of this SDLC, we apply them in our development on a daily basis. Some key facts about our company. Well, this year we are happy to celebrate our 20th corporate anniversary. As cybersecurity is a major concern across the board, across all industries, we are growing fast, and we are receiving more demands today than ever before, I have to say. We have been kindly recognized by Trends as a top performer scale-up in cybersecurity for the 3rd year running. And this year, we are happy to launch our first offices outside of Belgium. So next to our Belgian offices, Antwerp and Louvain-la-Neuve, we have now 4 locations in Western Switzerland. And I think we have one of our Swiss colleagues with us today. So I say hello to Yves. Our approach to cyber resilience is inspired, as you can see, by industry best practices such as the NIST or the ISO standards. So you obviously know them, but it's also based on our 20 years of experience in the domain with thousands of client cases. And so this translates now into a large portfolio of services addressing each step of the 360-degree cyber resilience and privacy journey, as you can see. So from assessment and audit to advisory consulting services for your CXO, CISO, DPOs, whatever, through to awareness and education of end users and developers, we traditionally cover, let's say, the traditional pillars: anticipate, prevent, protect. Again, with respect to the topic of today, you know, we developed software according to secure SDLC principles. The It's Me app is a good example of our references in that domain. So we apply the principle, the shift left principles on a daily basis for this customer, for instance. And now further, because it's not longer if, but when will you and us will be facing attacks, we also provide 24/7 detect and response capabilities, thanks to our SOC and CCERT. And finally, we also propose recovery services such as secure backup, business continuity, and cyber insurances as a safety net. So bottom line, we are a one-stop shop partner for your cyber resilience, combining a large pool of certified professionals with the best technology available. As you can see amongst our approved partners, we are happy to be recognized as Micro Focus Gold Partner for the security area. And if you are asking me why we approved the solution of Micro Focus, well, first, they're market leader in their area. They are in the Magic Quadrant of Gartner, for instance. So the reputation is obviously not to be proven. Second, their solutions are very flexible. And Fernando will tell you more about that, but you can have them in the cloud SaaS-based model or on-prem perpetual licenses with various options. It's very, very flexible. And lastly, they integrate extremely well. So you can get a single view for your SAST and DAST tools, for instance. So I think this is where they are really good with. We are trained on their solution, but we also receive great support from the support from their engineers and product engineer when it's necessary for our customers. So we're never left alone. And most importantly, at the end, we are receiving great feedback from our customers. And again, Fernando will tell you more about field experience in a minute. This will be my last introduction slide. It's an extract of recent customers grouped by industry, and you may be able to recognize yourself. Some of you are attending this meeting today. I wanted to take this opportunity to thank you again for your trust and continued support. All right, so let's get down now to business. What are the benefits of shifting left your security? Well, before going any further, let me first set the stage and talk about the general cybersecurity landscape. And you as security professionals, I don't have to tell you, we all know it's pretty ugly, right? So, but let me pick just 3 statistics. Last year, more than 1,000 privacy breaches were reported to the Belgian DPA. It means possible fines along with other damages on reputation, business, and so on. Last year, all applications that we pen tested were found vulnerable, and 1 issue out of 2 was critical. So we always find something. And about 50% of the vulnerabilities were just security misconfigurations that could just be simply avoided during the development and deployment phases. So that means there is clearly an opportunity to tackle these issues during the development process, right? So for those who are interested to learn more about our study, you can get your copy of our annual pentest report. Just let us know in the chat box and we'll send it to you after. It's a 20-page report summarizing all the vulnerabilities that we found along with practical recommendations. Okay, why is it so bad? Well, first of all, let's have a look to what we see usually at our clients. I think when is security typically addressed? Very late in the process, unfortunately. We are usually called at the end of the process. So it's approach, please pen test our application before we release in production. And then we do the test, we find critical vulnerabilities, and then they will have to fix them as soon as possible. Can we expect developers not to make mistakes? Of course not. We can't blame them. I think it's clear. Did they receive the necessary trainings, the needed time, the tooling, and so on? Probably not. So most of the time, the result of our pen test is adding even more pressure and stress on their shoulders. So security finally, again, perceived as a braking factor instead of a business enabler. All of this has obviously a negative impact on your time to market, and it's also a tremendous impact on your cost and efficiency. You've seen this before. The cost to fix a vulnerability found in production costs about 30 times more than when it's fixed earlier in the process. So we start to see clearly the benefits of shifting left. I think the earlier the better. So by experience, a more effective approach to security testing is to shift left security activities, but also to stretch them right. So all these activities listed below can be done. I would say no one is a silver bullet, of course, but the more you do well, the best will be your results. So I try to essentially to group them in 3 areas. First, security and privacy by design. Everything that you can do very early in the process, such as risk and privacy assessment, threat modeling, and so on. You can also have a security architect during this early stage, reviewing your design and your architecture. Second, automated and manual security testing. So it's all about SAS, DAST, pen test, and so on. We're going to talk mainly about this topic today. And lastly, secure deployment and maintenance. It's all about hardening of the system, web application firewalls, bug bounty, and so on, but also detection and response solutions such as ArcSight, for instance. So the first question we usually get is, okay, David, it's nice, but we have limited resources, we have limited budget, we have limited time, so where to start with? Well, these are 3 tips you can use to effectively start shifting left. Educate, integrate, automate. So first, train and coach your developer. Promote a positive security culture. Identify security champions in your team and also develop them. Again, Fernando will give you some practical examples. Adopt and integrate tooling such as Fortify, SAS and Dust, for instance, in your development pipeline. Finally, automate testing so that you can keep up with the fast pace of your development, especially in a DevOps environment. So it's clear we are getting benefits if we shift left. As we have seen, we will tremendously reduce the cost. We'll have a higher security from late detection to early prevention. We'll improve the quality of the code. And by the way, you can use also quality code testing tools in combination. And finally, we'll reduce your time to market, increase your end user satisfaction and experience for the benefits of your business. So I thank you for your attention, and I leave now the floor to my colleague, Fernando.
Thank you, David. My name is Fernando Van Seven, and I am a senior consultant at Approach. I will share with you the experience I have implementing DevSecOps within companies. I have experience in the financial sector as well as in the public sector. Before talking about DevSecOps, we have to talk about DevOps. And what is DevOps? The reason why companies adopt DevOps is to keep up with the speed of our digital life. And look at those numbers. 208 times faster, more frequent code deployment, 106 faster lead time from commit to deploy. This is possible because of DevOps. And this cycle that we see here, it is very well known. And again, if you see this cycle, you see that security is not in the picture. And this is exactly what David just mentioned. The cost to remediate is higher because it's not in the cycle. So the shift left, how can we implement the shift left? It's really by implementing, embedding the security into the cycle. Sorry. And we have this new cycle. So there are three new elements: is the static code analysis, the dynamic application security testing, and the real-time application self-protection. I will not speak about the third one. It's not in the scope of this presentation. But let's get back to the static and the dynamic code analysis. They are also very well known as the SAST and DAST. This is the acronyms. And SAST stands for Static Application Security Testing. What is happening in this moment is during the coding phase, developer will scan his code and the application will give him the vulnerabilities. So he will be able to correct it immediately while it's still fresh in his mind. And at the same time, he will learn it. And this is a great feature because this, if he uses a method that is non-secure, the next time he will know it and he will use another one. So he can really learn fast by this feature. The second is the dynamic application security testing, better known as DAST. This is happening during the compile, after the application is compiled. And again, as it is coming very fast in the cycle, the developer can correct it very fast because it's still fresh in his mind. And finally, the penetration testing is still relevant. It is important to have an external team looking back to what has been done, to have a proper segregation of duties, because also there's humans who will look for very nasty vulnerabilities, but also for business logic vulnerabilities that are perfectly right on the coding side, but just the logic is not right. When I look back to the companies I work for implementing DevSecOps, they were very attentive to three main features: integration, flexibility, and to ease the developer's life. Integration is extremely important. It's to avoid to the developer that they have to leave the current environment development and go to another tool and then come back. So it's extremely important for the companies I work for to have this integrated in one tool so that they don't have to leave this tool. And here we can see this is a pipeline configuration. We can see the agent and the developer can implement an automated test scanning within the pipeline itself. The second is the flexibility. Depending of the company's needs, you can go for the cloud version or the on-premise version, and you can change in the middle of the road. One of the company I work for start with the on-premise and then switch to the cloud version because they needed change. And the third one is really important, is ease the developer life. As I mentioned before, it's important that they learn also from the experience and they keep inside the tool. So here we have the auditing screen, and we see as soon as a vulnerability is discovered during the scan, there is an explanation on the right. What is this vulnerability? There are also some tagging, and the comment can be left for further analysis. But more important, there is a recommendation tab here, and this recommendation tab will help the developer, so it's not left alone, and he will be able to learn again from the vulnerability. So there is a interesting learning curve, and very interesting also, there is integration with Secure Code Warrior. The typical phases of an application, I have 4 main blocks. The first one is get the basics right. And it's set the governance and assure CI/CD is right. Set the governance is extremely important to have it at the beginning. If you have to comply to some regulation, you have to know at the beginning, because it will be important for your governance. Assure that CI/CD is right. Indeed, I have experience with a customer that their DevOps were not properly configured. So it means that the changes they made, they were not in the pull request and not deployed. So there were no benefits of having a DevSecOps. So very important to have the basics right. The second is implement the tool, install the tool. This is the easiest part. It's the technical, they know what to do, easy. Very fast. The third one is train and set up the process, train the developer. Have your developer as soon as possible in the process, and they can be also able to participate to the setup of the process. Extremely important for the buy-in. This is where the project wins or fails. Finally, integrate the project first by using your internal project, because you have the full control of it. And it's very easy. If I take first a very easy project to gain confidence and then streamline the integration process. When it's done, you can go for external project. So if you have third parties coding for you, you can integrate them into your DevSecOps, and so they will be at the same level of quality as your internal project. What are the pitfalls? What do you have to pay attention? If you have to remember one thing for this presentation, it is a change management process. It's really important to have the people on board. The technical side is easy. It's the human factor which will depend the success of your implementation. So very important, get the buy-in of the developers, but also from the business. From the business, it is important that they will know that the implementation at the beginning will delay a little bit the releases, because there will be a little bit more work at the beginning. And from the developer, yes, if you tell to developers we implement DevSecOps because we want to reduce the cost of the remediation, it will not work. Tell them you will be confronted of the state-of-the-art information for the security. You will be able to develop more secure, and it will ease their buy-in. Prepare the stakeholders for the result. This is important. The first scan will be confronting. People who think they develop right, secure, will be confronted to a tool that will be very confronting. So try to avoid to be judgmental. This won't help. And it's also important to pass the message to the business. The idea is to increase the knowledge, so we have to start somewhere. Designate a security champion. You will see in the occurrence of the implementation that there will be people more skilled, more gifted than others. Promote them. And so the other will turn to them, but also it will be a fantastic motivation because as you have a role model, people tend to go to them. Training and continuous coaching. Training is at the beginning, but it's not a one-shot. It's not a shoot and forget. Continuous coaching is super important. If the developers are left alone, they will try to bypass the controls, and this is not the goal. So it is also here the role of the security champion. Coaching will be, the security champion will be the first line of coaching, and then be sure that there is a second line to help it, also the security champion. Adoptaphase approach. If you have multiple projects to implement into DevSecOps, really important to have a phased approach. If you put everything at the same time, the developers will be overloaded with work, the releases will be delayed, business won't be happy. So start first, small, but significant, so that there are still already very fast some results, but to avoid the delays. Do not underestimate the governance. I mentioned at the beginning, for example, if you have to comply to PCI DSS, PCI DSS require that the people controlling the code are not in the same team as the people writing the code. There must be a proper segregation of duties. So it is important that you think about it at the beginning, and it keeps in your mind while implementing the process. Finally, communicate progress, celebrate success. While you will have your first result, it will be very confronting. The good news is that we will be able to measure the success and the progress. Every week you can say, you will be able to say, we slashed so many vulnerabilities. The week after, so many vulnerabilities. So you will see the progress. And when there will be a release, the first release that has been passed through this cycle will be the most secure release ever. And you will be able to celebrate. And one great moment to celebrate is during wine tasting, for example. What do you think, Toon?
Well, maybe you're jumping a little bit too hard. There's somebody who's thirsty in the room, I guess. No, but absolutely. And thank you, Fernando, for this presentation. I think in just a few minutes time, it does indeed give us some good thinking points and elements. If you start such a journey, what are the things to take into consideration and the pitfalls? So first of all, let me ask the audience here, are there any questions? Is there something that kind of struck your mind where you say you would like Fernando to go a little bit deeper on an additional question? I know this may be a hard moment as people tend to be shy in the room. But feel free to, just unmute or type, whatever you prefer.
I don't really have a question. I'm Frederick Koenen here from the European Commission also. But I really, in my experience, indeed the celebrating success is something that is often forgotten, and motivating the teams. And that seems to be a very important factor, that it's not just about the tools, but also about actually celebrating that and keeping the people motivated and all of those things. So I really like that was in the presentation.
Yeah, thank you. I agree, and this is also something cultural, but people struggle during the implementations, and I've seen that before, and I totally agree. And this is something very important to celebrate. Don't hesitate to celebrate.
Not always easy, by the way, when we work all remotely. I'm thinking now about one of our customers where we are implementing SAST and Dust of Fortify in a large, let's say, ministry, 10,000 of users, large scale projects. So it's really not easy to align the teams transversally. So it can become very challenging.
Mm-hmm. I see that somebody's typing.
Anything else out there? And while we'll wait for questions to come in, there's also something that I wanted to kind of double check with you, or like a discussion point, if you want. Lately, I do see a lot more interest in dynamic scanning, and really also trying to achieve that shift left for dynamic scanning. Dynamic scanning is, as we reviewed it in the presentation, typically something that is a little bit more towards the right of the development cycle, and it more happens on an ad hoc basis. What we're seeing now is, and I know some of the companies here, 45 users in the room are doing this more on a more repetitive basis and are trying to achieve that shift left also on the dynamic side. Is that also a trend that you see? Is that also something that you are considering, thinking about? Yeah, just trying to also bring more agility into dynamic thing scanning and also making sure it becomes more feasible to testing earlier in the development lifecycle. If you have any thoughts on that one, yeah, happy to receive them. Again, it is something that I tend to see a little bit more right now.
Yes, if I could chime in on that, I certainly see the move into more dynamic scanning part of it, since of course static isn't going to cover everything, especially in related to more complex interactions when the applications are consisting of multiple components, for example, spec'd out over several repositories. And I think one of the pitfalls there is always on one side, yeah, you have the maintenance overhead, because of course you need to set up authenticated flows for the web vulnerability scanning itself to go through and keep it maintained, keep it working. And of course, on the other side, the latency and the workload issue. That of course, if you, for example, run a DAST scan on every pull request, you'll have to make the developers accept that, of course, merging a pull request will take a little bit longer just because the web vulnerability scan needs to go through the full application.
Right. Yeah, Niels, thank you very much for those comments. And I know there is a technology challenge, let's call it that way, when it comes to DAST scanning, because it tends to be more resource demanding. And but it's also an attention area, and it's definitely also something within Fortify that we're working on right now, trying to see how we can speed that up. Yeah, I shouldn't use the word incremental scanning because it tends to be a very loaded term nowadays. But the idea is there, how we can actually make it shorter in time so that it becomes more accessible and easier for also development teams to use it. Yeah, but also there, it is a point of attention within Fortify.
We have a, sorry.
Yeah,
we have a question in the chat.
Yes, I just saw the note. So how do other companies perform reporting out of Fortify Software Security Center? Are they going for BERT reporting, the incorporated graphing, or do they add a custom layer on top? So that's a question coming from Sam. Not sure, Frederick, if that is something that you want to chime in, because I do know that obviously you're also relying on Fortify SSC to do some of the reporting, and I know you had some enhancements done there working with Ruud on it.
Yeah, you saw me smiling probably. So yeah, we do use Fortify Software Security Center extensively. We even import, like we had some third-party parsers developed for OWASP dependency check and then burp, like for a few other tools. So everything is centralized there. And we've struggled with the BERT reporting. Yeah, the BERT reporting is not ideal. Some of the reports that still exist are quite old, and the format itself is not so easy to adjust. We created a BERT report, but it was from an existing report, but it was not that easy. But we still use that. But then I just saw this week that Fortify actually put out a new video on connecting Power BI, so Microsoft Power BI, to the Fortify Software Security Center for reporting purposes. So that could be something interesting, and that's something I were thinking of. But we also just used like the an export in CSV format to an outside, so we can just import that. For example, we use the Atlassian suite. we export on a weekly basis all the metrics to a table there, so that can be easily used by any user, just like an Excel sheet up to date. So that's nice also, but ideally, I think, yeah, it would be best to connect it to a business intelligence tool, but that's not something that we're very used to doing in the security business, I think. So we don't do that yet, but that Power BI connector seems quite interesting. Could be interesting for the future. Use direct.
Yeah, I'm happy to collect some more information about that one and actually feed that back to you, Sam. No problem. I can set up something with Omar on this one. Starts to turn into a 45 customer advisory board, it sounds like. But thank you guys for your input and for your questions.